Give him my top piece from over there. Make it tie up. Otherwise, the microphone kind of stands out. Looks like I got a heart pacer or something. Make it like you would do if I was wearing it.
If you prefer to keep it off, Maharaja, it's fine. If you prefer to actually keep it on the table, that's also fine.
I just put my top piece on so it just covers it. It won't cover the sound, I don't think. You have to tie a little tiny knot in one end to the other. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvasesha Saranavadi Bhattacharya Sutari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhattavindam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Devasari Gaura Bhattavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We have to be a little quiet because we're in an apartment block and it's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's like the middle of the night for the local people. Right, Rohini? Yes. They've just gone to bed, some of them. And we'll have no end of complaints if we're too loud. So bear with us. I hope you can hear us. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, oh Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jai Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha, Girivardhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Girivardhari, Yasodanandana, Rajajanaranjana, Yasodanandana, Rajajanaranjana, Yamuratira Vanachari, Yamunatira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Baba Girivara Hari. Gopi Jana Baba Girivara Hari. Yasodanandana Rajajanandana Yamuna Tinda Vanachahi Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Maharaja Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gonitai ki jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Brihat Madanga ki jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachardine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Pastuchari Shatani Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vanchakalpatubhyascha Vipasindubhyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Tapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapdantikam. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Thank you for giving your association today to share with us the Srimad Bhagavatam. Here's the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic literature, which has appeared after the departure of Lord Sri Krishna to his own abode to give light to those blinded by the darkness of this age of Kali. It's a shining light. So most people's eyes are closed. The more we open our eyes, the more we'll experience the enlightenment of associating with Srimad Bhagavatam. Opening the eyes, of course, doesn't just mean the physical eye, obviously, but they're in our heart. The more we are attentive, the more we try to just allow the sound vibration to enter into our inner consciousness, and naturally the more enlightenment will be there. Krishna will reciprocate. This is our surrender at this stage, you could say. One sense of surrender is that we're putting aside all the other thoughts and all the other priorities in our lives. When we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, just to hear the Bhagavatam, not through a veneer or screen of other desires and other thoughts, but try to have open our hearts and just hear the Bhagavatam. So we're going to be reading this morning from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, text 21. Correct? I think so. That's, I think, sequentially verse which we're on today. And it's a continuation of these very, 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 let's say, well-known. Prabhupada himself quoted these verses when he arrived first in the United States of America, in his poem Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma. So this is one of those verses. So I'll just read through the verse once or twice, and you can just chant at the same time if you want. Bijate vidaya grantish chidyante sarva sangshayaha shiyante chasya karmani vishtaevatmanishvare. Bijate vidaya grantish chidyante sarva sangshayaha shiyante kasya karmani vishtaevatmanishvare. Vijate hridaya grantish chidyante sarva sangshayaha shiyante chasya karmani vishtaevatmanishvare. Vijate hridaya grantish chidyante sarva sangshayaha shiyante chasya karmani vishtaevatmanishvare. Synonyms, word for word. Vidyate, pierced. Hridaya, heart. Granti, knots. Chidyante, cut to pieces. Sarva, all. Sangshayaha, misgivings. Shiyante, terminated. Cha, and. Asya, his. Karmani, chain of fruitive actions. Vishte, having seen. Eva, certainly. Atmani, unto the self. Ishvare, dominating. Translation, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Attaining scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead means seeing one's own self simultaneously. We didn't read the translation, did we? We jumped over, sorry. I probably did say the purports was even more significant, but that doesn't minimize the importance of the verse. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Thus, the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. This will come on to later, that last line, which is rather interesting. Purport. Attaining scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead means seeing one's own self simultaneously. As far as the identity of the living being and spirit self is concerned, there are a number of speculations and misgivings. The materialist does not believe in the existence of the spirit self, and empiric philosophers believe in the impersonal feature of the whole spirit without individuality of the living beings. But the transcendentalists affirm that the soul and the supersoul are two different identities, qualitatively one, but quantitatively different. There are many other theories, but all these different speculations are at once cleared off as soon as Sri Krishna is realized in truth by the process of bhakti yoga. Sri Krishna is like the sun, and the materialistic speculations about the absolute truth are like the darkest midnight. As soon as the Krishna sun is arisen within one's heart, the darkness of materialistic speculations about the absolute truth and the living beings is at once cleared off. In the presence of the sun, the darkness cannot stand, and the relative truths that were hidden within the dense darkness of ignorance become clearly manifested by the mercy of Krishna, who is residing in everyone's heart as the Supersoul. In the Bhagavad Gita 10:11, the Lord says that in order to show special favor to his pure devotees, he personally eradicates the dense darkness of all misgivings by switching on the light of pure knowledge within the heart of a devotee. Nice example. Krishna switches on the light. We're dark inside, we're in ignorance. And Krishna is the one who switches on the light so we can see things for what they really are, not what they appear to be in the dark. Therefore, because of the personality of Godhead taking charge of illuminating the heart of his devotee, certainly a devotee engaged in his service in transcendental love cannot remain in darkness. He comes to know everything of the absolute and the relative truths. The devotee cannot remain in darkness, and because a devotee is enlightened by the personality of Godhead, his knowledge is certainly perfect. This is not the case for those who speculate on the absolute truth by dint of their own limited power of approach. Perfect knowledge is called parampara, or deductive knowledge, coming down from the authority to the submissive oral receiver, who is bona fide by service and surrender. One cannot challenge the authority of the Supreme and know him also at the same time. He reserves the right of not being exposed to such a challenging spirit of an insignificant spark of the whole, a spark subjected to the control of an illusory energy. The devotees are submissive, and therefore the transcendental knowledge descends from the personality of Godhead to Brahma, and from Brahma to his sons and disciples in succession. This process is helped by the Supersoul within such devotees. That is the perfect way of learning transcendental knowledge. This enlightenment perfectly enables the devotee to distinguish spirit from matter. Because the knot of spirit and matter is untied by the Lord, this knot is called ahankara, and it falsely obliges a living being to become identified with matter. As soon as this knot is loosened, therefore, all the clouds of doubt are once cleared off. One sees his master and fully engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, making a full termination of the chain of fruitive action. In material existence, a living being creates his own chain of fruitive work and enjoys the good and bad effects of those actions life after life. But as soon as he engages himself in the loving service of the Lord, he at once becomes free from the chain of karma. His actions no longer create any reaction. End of purport by Srila Prabhupada. Very good. We'll just read the verse again. He Vidyate Vidaya Gunte Vidyante Sarva Sangshayaha Shiyante Chasya Karamani Drishta Eva Manishware. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the mass self as master. For those who have not been regularly with us on the Sunday morning, this is one of a chain of verses which describe the systematic purification of the heart, eradication of anarthas or unwanted material and attachments, desires, etc. Cleansing the heart, removing all the various karmas, etc., and becoming absorbed in devotional service and the association of devotees, and finally awakening one's attraction, one's dormant love, or at least unalloyed devotion without any effect of any other object of one's attention towards Krishna. These preliminary stages are explained in this particular section of Srimad Bhagavatam. How to understand. Earlier in this chapter, Sutta Goswami explains how learned persons understand the transcendent or the absolute truth. Some understand the absolute truth as just as the impersonal Brahman, as Prabhupada is mentioning here. Some as the localized Paramatma, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shabdyate. Some as the supreme lovable personality of Godhead. In other words, we have those who see the absolute truth as all-pervading Brahman, which is monism, impersonalism, and those who localize their reverential mood towards the Supreme Being. Generally speaking, if there's any understanding of the position of Godhead, this is more or less the idea. God is the Supreme Being. He's everywhere. God is love. God is the creator. Like that. He's guiding our wanderings. These are all true, but they're related to the material world. They're not pure. They can, of course, such worship of the Lord in reverence, in respect, can, if purely performed and by the will of the Lord, can lead one to Vaikuntha. But the mood of the pure devotees, which is emphasized entirely in Srimad Bhagavatam, while others, of course, are mentioned as stages towards understanding the absolute truth in full, not in part, but in full. The process of devotional service is emphasized. In the paths of devotional service, all the results obtained from other paths are also readily available, although not aspired for necessarily, but they're also contained therein. Because one has achieved the ultimate objective goal through pure devotional service. In this sense, of course, everything is the mercy of Krishna, as we understand here that Krishna is everywhere, and he's the one who's giving the results of our work through whatever means he does it. But ultimately it comes through Krishna, from Krishna. So a devotee, understanding that, of course, utilizes everything in Krishna's service. So in this particular verse, the emphasis is placed here on severing any other, we could say, attachment to come to pure devotional service, which is devoid of any desire for liberation, to speak of material achievement, devoid of any desire even for Vaikuntha. Those are this month's Kartik. We sing daily, maybe many of you are probably, if not all, singing daily the Damodarastakam, and the mood of pure devotional service is is very sweetly revealed there in that song, Damodarastakam. Without any reverence. I mean, we may begin our worship of the Lord, of course, reverentially. We're not on the platform of spontaneous familiarity with the Lord. We're on the platform of, maybe hopefully some desire, some faith to achieve it. But we're on the platform where we're still entangled and attached to this material world. The knots in our heart are still, they may have been loosened a little bit. We may realize that they're binding us. We may not particularly, be so ambitious as we were before, or others for material achievements. But still there's an attraction there to the material world. We still are entangled with even if it's only a token, there's still karmic hangovers which disturb us, distract us, and so on. Cause us to act in a conditional way, which may be not always so favorable for pure devotional service. Old habits and so on, they take a long time to fade out, to die. But the process is there gradually, step by step by step. There are some key features, many key features, and today is one of those key features, cutting the knot. Earlier in this chapter, Sudhagava Goswami says, Yada Nadyasina Yukta Karma Gwantin Abandhanam Chindanti Kogadas Tasya Kona Kurit Kataratim. That intelligent persons cut through this knot, this which we're hearing today, and this is Hridaya Grantish, this knot in the heart. Hridaya is the Granti, the knot in the heart, Hridaya. So they cut that knot by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his messages? How does this work? Well, Prabhupada refers to a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita there regarding this. Wherever there's Krishna, there cannot be Maya. Wherever there's, wherever there's darkness, wherever there's light, there cannot be darkness. Where there's Krishna, there cannot be Maya. How does that verse go? I've forgotten it. And it's a famous verse in Chaitanya Charita. Usually we don't forget it, but this morning we've forgotten that verse. But Prabhupada is referring to it in the purport here. This is the secret, to be in the presence of Krishna, just like in the Prabhupada gives example, being in the presence of the sun. How can there be darkness? Only when we are covered. Not the sun cannot be covered, but we sometimes cover ourselves, or we're covered. So the living entity is covered and doesn't perceive the sun. It's like at night, let's say the earth is covering us. So we're on the dark side of the earth, whichever way you like to call it. Or we've got our windows closed, we're in a dark place, we're in the ground or something, we're asleep. This way we may not see the sun, although its presence is there. Krishna Surya Sam, it just comes. Krishna Surya Sam, Krishna's like the sun. Maya Haya Andakara. Maya is like the darkness. Wherever there's Krishna, there cannot be darkness. Like that. So to keep in the presence of Krishna, this is the secret. So that's one major aspect of this thread of how, let's say, we awaken our Krishna consciousness. In general, people don't even see anything there. They don't even see a need, although they may be suffering. There's no urge for them. It's not even a manifest, it's not even there. They're just absorbed in their materialistic endeavors, hoping that this is going to satisfy their desires, at least in this lifetime. Whereas the devotees, so another key factor in this particular chapter is another verse, Shushushudhanasya Vasudeva Katarachi. Syan Mahatseva Viprapunya Tirtana Shavana. That by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, what happens by such service is that one's heart becomes purified, and by the mercy of Krishna, he purifies. And an attraction takes place, an attraction for hearing about Krishna. So the key of this is not you can just remember Krishna like that, although there's some memory, you could say, or reminder sometimes, from whatever reason. Oh, God save me. People make, but they're not any clear conception of who is God. Just the hope or the faith within the heart that there's some supreme being alone who can help us. Well, that's the beginning stage, and it's not to be, let's say, discredited in any way, but it's the beginning stage. It's not the ending stage. That there's some recognition of the supreme being, and we're turning to him. That's a pretty good start. But for a devotee, they're eager to hear about the personality of Godhead. What can you hear about the personality of Godhead in most, let's say, practices in the world? Those who are on the Mayavadi path, what do they hear about the personality of Godhead? I mean, they hear Krishna Lila. What for? To merge into the Brahman. They're not really thinking that Krishna is the objective goal. They're not thinking, oh, Krishna is my life and soul. He's just a kind of a stepping stone where I can become God. It's a little bit different. Their hearing is not really hearing at all. It's utilization of, let's say, subject matter, which may be very pleasing to the senses and mind, but it's the stepping stone. It's like you have a stepping stone going across a river or something. It's not the goal. The goal is to merge, become God. And for those who are on the, let's say, on the materialistic path, but they're pious, religious, etc., God is an order supplier. God is the one who releases us from our, going to hell or bondage. Or it's true. It's not untrue. It's not complete also. It's just very kind of like, like a child sees, the world around him. He doesn't really understand what's going on behind the scenes at a young age. Everything's coming from mother and father and, like that. They don't really understand what's going on behind the scenes very much. So for the karmis, those who are actually karmis means those who are religious, those who are very pious, etc., etc. The Krishna may reciprocate with them, of course. They may get their heavens, they may get their opulences and so on in this material world, freedom from their reactions and so on and so forth. But again, that's not really the goal at all. And they don't generally have any subject matter. If you look at most, let's say, I choose the word, or as I say, it's not in any way to decry or to minimize any of these processes, but most religions, not including exactly, but including many of the branches of the Vedas, do not really deal with the subject matter of the personality of Godhead. They deal with a concept, but there's no information there, practically speaking. There's nothing to hear. What are you going to hear? Even the Vedas, Krishna said that, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjana. They mainly deal with the three modes of nature. And mainly with an understanding that there's a God behind it, there's a controller, there's something behind it all, Brahman or localized Godhead or something, a Paramatma, something behind it all. But there's no real understanding on what do you hear about. Okay, we're going to hear about Paramatma. You can hear something about Paramatma, how he's decorated, his various, form and his things in his hands and so on and so forth, different items, beauty and so on can be there, but it's still very, let's say, descriptive and very distant. It's just a description of a personality who's controlling everything. There's no relationship involved there, particularly. There's a relationship related to the material worlds, the guide and the controller and the provider and lifesaver, whatever different terms we can use, but there's no personal relationship there. It's like, of course, this happens, why we attracted to certain persons, but it's only because of their external features. But that type of an attraction doesn't generally last. It may be there, no doubt, but the real attraction is deeper, much deeper. So in relationship with Krishna, for instance, where would you find in any other scriptures a description? A little bit sometimes, but very little. So small you hardly notice it, and it doesn't go anywhere. Just a statement. It doesn't enter into the pastimes or the qualities a little bit, but very little. Or to speak of a real appreciation of the name of the Supreme Lord, his pastimes and qualities, etc., which is found in Srimad Bhagavatam particularly. It's found in many Puranas, and various areas of the Vedic literature, but so many other things are found there too. And people, because they have material desires, are attracted to maybe demigod worship, or again, the impersonal aspect, thinking this is just a means of becoming purified, of cutting the knot so I can merge. No, Srimad Bhagavatam is purely aimed at pure devotional service, at reestablishing our eternal loving relationship with Krishna, not any other purpose. That's why in the Bhagavatam we start with Dharma Pujita Kuta Putra Paramona Matsaranam Satam. That this Srimad Bhagavatam completely rejects all religious processes which are materially motivated, and establishes the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are completely pure in heart. Matsaranam. No envy, no selfish motivation, not appealing to God to give me my materialistic selfish results of what I want, but rather pure devotional service. Krishnendriya is completely freed of any such motivation. It's very rare to find such a consciousness, such a mentality, or whatever you wish to call it. It's very rare in this world. This is again back to the verse Shushusha. It's only by the mercy of the pure devotees. We read in the Lord Kapila Dev Prasanga Majaram Pasham these famous verses in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, how every learned person knows that the greatest entanglement of the living entity is our attachment to this material world, to the sense objects. When that same attachment is transferred to the self-realized souls, it cuts the knot. It frees us in this material. It frees us from the bondage, the cycle of birth and death. So the key feature here is association. The same principle is given in the 5th chapter of this first canto, when we read how Narada Muni attained perfection. And that perfection wasn't achieved by merely practice. Of course, practice comes, but it was achieved primarily by the association of the Bhaktivedantas, the pure devotees of the Lord. By in their association, he was able to a little bit get that mercy in the form of prasadam, as a little bit of a chance to serve, and he had the opportunity to hear. By taking prasadam, by rendering service, gradually a person becomes a little eligible, a little interested. I could see yesterday there was one man who came to the book table. We were doing Sankirtan, trying to serve the Sankirtan mission in Paris yesterday. And one of our dear devotees has a book table whenever he can. And one gentleman, a French gentleman, his wife came up to the book table, and I could hear from a distance, although he was speaking in French, I could get the idea. He was practicing yoga, and he was looking for some further literature into yoga. He said, I've already got the Bhagavad Gita, not Prabhupada's. I could tell that because he was looking through Prabhupada's to see if it agreed with his idea. And then he, looking at other books, he saw the Krishna book, and he picked it up a couple of times, looked at it, and something maybe a bit not quite ready for it, a bit too kind of like Krishna. It wasn't like everything that he thinks like. It's only Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And then he picked up a devotee named Jiva Prabhupada, brought over the Srimad Bhagavatam, said, we got any more books in French, big ones. And he looked through it, but still it wasn't, he wasn't quite ready yet. But he's on the path somewhere. The fact that he picked the books up, looked at them, touched them, thought about it, decided no, but still something was there. He's on the path, but not ready yet. Most people are not. So the devotees are always trying to prepare others. So that's a little preparation for him. I don't know if he took prasadam or not. We had some simply wonderfuls there, but I don't think there were any left when he came. So a little bit like that, we give prasadam. They hear the holy. They also heard the holy name, and they touch the books and they talk to a devotee for a few minutes, and they're a little bit step forward on their path, which is probably, if a path at all, it probably mostly focuses on Brahman, or the impersonal understanding of the absolute truth. Most people who practice yoga have that idea. To take them further may not always be so easy, but gradually, by rendering service unknowingly, in this case, as Gyata Sukriti, they have this chance of slowly their hearts become purified. So this is the preaching mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to gradually bring people or prepare us. I mean, now we can say, well, what is our qualification? Well, one devotee asked that question, one of Srila Prabhupada, that, in the Bhagavad Gita, we see Yesham Tvantakatam Papam Jananam Punya Karmanam, but only by the, one who's pure in this life and previous life, whose sinful reactions are eradicated and is not bewildered by the duality of this material world, can engage in devotional service with determination. So he said, what is my qualification? I've not done anything pious, Prabhupada. Many of the devotees in the West who came to this movement were drug addicts or something like that, some kind of really degraded behavior. So what is our qualification? Certainly, I don't feel like, I've acted piously in this life, what to speak of previous lifetimes. Sinful reactions, well, that can be debated, I suppose, but they certainly don't seem to be eradicated. I'm still suffering, I'm still attached, and so on and so forth. And I'm still bewildered by the duality. So what's my qualification? I don't seem to have any less than most people around me. So Prabhupada said, the only qualification I have given you your qualification. So in that sense, the only qualification is that we have, for whatever reason it is, calls us mercy or something or another, we have the fortunate association of such a pure devotee of the Lord who is free from all vice. And it's only by his mercy that this knot can be cut. It's not simply by practice either. That may be required and certainly effective up to a point. But the real cut is the mercy of the pure devotee of the Lord. And how he cuts, he gives us directions. He gives us guidance. Prophet sometimes describes it, sometimes. There are three ways of attaining perfection. Three ways of attaining perfection. Sadhana, siddhana, we're trying for that practice, but that's not an easy one, especially in Kali Yuga. We all know how difficult it is. Even the minimum sadhana is not always so easy. Following the regulated principles strictly, chanting rounds. If we chant at all, are we chanting offenselessly? Maybe not. Are we, following all the dues, the yamas and niyamas? Are we doing all the various regulations? Maybe not. Maybe we're still indulging in some kind of, let's say, separatist intention, some other activities which we don't really need for Krishna consciousness. Maybe. So many deviations may be there. Our sadhana may be mechanical, but it's not very, it's certainly good, but it may take a long time. Prabhupada relates offensive chanting to mechanical chanting, by the way. Bahu Jamma Kariyari Shravana Kirtana. And that may take many lifetimes. And Nityasiddha, well, forget that. Although we understand we're eternal servants of Krishna, we certainly haven't come from the spiritual world to manifest our eternal service mentality in this world. We've come here quite the opposite. We've come here to try to forget that one and try to see ourselves as the enjoyer in the center. So Kripa Siddha means the mercy, simply mercy. Mercy of the pure devotees of the Lord. This is the secret to obtain or to not that we're you can't cheat that one. You can't bluff it. It may look like in others' eyes, but it's not so. Krishna knows everything. When the pure devotee is pleased, if you do sing in the morning some Saradava prayers, Gurvashtakam, Yasya Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, Yasha Prasada, Nagati Katopi, Dayam Stuvam Stasyaya Sasti Sandhyam, Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. By the mercy of the Lord, one gets the opportunity to associate with his representative, the pure devotee of the Lord. By the mercy of the pure devotee, one gets Krishna. It's not direct. It's only by the mercy of the pure devotee of the Lord. This knot is cut by Krishna. Krishna within the heart removes these material desires from the heart. He is the pavitram. We can see Prabhupada's mentioned quite a few times in the Bhagavad Gita how Krishna cuts that knot or gives that purification. He quotes one verse, we can read it, in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, for instance. Where's that verse? 10, 11, I think, isn't it? Very famous series of verses in the Bhagavad Gita. 10, 11. Yeah. Tesham evanukam partam aham agyanajam tamaha nashayam yatmapu bhavasto jnanadipena bhasvata. With the lamp, deep. This month we all offering deep or lamps to Lord Damodar, if so to Damodar. But what is that real lamp? To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge. It's knowledge, the darkness born of ignorance. Actual knowledge. Now, the knowledge on our level may not be, you could say, transcendental knowledge exactly, but it's knowledge which leads to transcendence, as Krishna explains in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Those who dedicate themselves to this knowledge realize this knowledge in due course of time. It's the process of the mercy, Prabhupada said, this Kripa Siddha, the instructions or the guidelines I give you. So when we follow that path, that's knowledge, it's the path. That's why the 4th chapter is called Divya Gyan, transcendental knowledge, although most of the chapter seems to be dedicated to a particular practices, behavior, and so on, different sadhanas. But that's the process given, not a speculation, it's given by the pure devotees, it's given by the Lord, and that process will gradually lead, by the mercy of the devotees, by the mercy of the Lord, to a purification of the heart. The heart will become cleansed. And as the heart becomes cleansed, just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, just like as the sun rises in the morning, everything becomes clear. Nityasthita Krishna Prem Sajakavanai Shravanadi Shuddhachiti Karyudaya. But that love for Krishna is constitutionally situated within our hearts. It is not something gained from an external source. It's Shravananadi, by the process of Shravananadi, following this process of hearing and chanting, etc. One gradually the heart becomes cleansed, and naturally one begins to see things clearly. So that mercy, that process is given by the pure devotees of the Lord according to time, place, and circumstance. We are all at different stages of development, of evolvement. So different sadhanas may be more or less, let's say, applied at different stages of our growth. The mood in which we perform our service will naturally evolve. It's natural. But it's the Lord in the heart, when he's pleased with our sincere endeavors to please his devotee, removes the dirt in the heart, cleanses that dirt away in the heart. And dirt meaning our attachments, our attractions to this material world. And you could say it's like it's growing. There's a very nice example given by some of our acharyas of a lotus flower. How a beautiful lotus flower, living in the clear lake, etc. And the lotus naturally, there are lotuses that blossom in the day. Let's take the daytime one. I don't know which ones are which. Some blossom at night, some blossom in the day. So let's take the daytime one. Let's say it's a pink one. I don't know if it's pink, but anyway, let's just say the pink one. Blossoms in the sun. So you need the sun. Without the sun, the lotus will not blossom. The sun is Krishna. He's the supreme sun. So we need the presence of Krishna to really blossom. It's very essential. We may be preparing before that different religious piety, this thing and that thing. But for Krishna consciousness, we need the presence of Krishna. We need to hear and chant with Krishna, worship Krishna, and so on. But that's not enough just to have the sun. If the lotus is not connected to the ground, it will get no nourishment. No nourishment. So the connection to the ground has to be, that refers to the Guru and the Parampara. The line of disciplic succession, that connection must be there to receive that pure essential nourishment in the form of, spiritual instructions. But that also is not enough. You also require the water. The water, without the water, the plant will simply dry up. It'll wither, it'll fall over to start with without the support of the water. Without the support of the water, it will fall down. Even if it's connected, even the sun's shining. Even the connections here is not enough. It needs the support of the sun, of the water rather. The water is the Sangha, Sadhu Sangha. We have to have association of devotees. Without that, we can fall down very easily. So all three features and many other details within it are required. So on our path, all three are important. Obviously, objective goal and hearing and chanting about Krishna, the proper connection with the parampara, and as much as we can, we always try to keep association with devotees. That will keep us from falling down. That's the support which we need in our devotional service to help us from not just withering, but falling away from, let's say, the path of pure devotional service. So this is the grace of the pure devotees of the Lord, and this will cut that knot of attachment to this. Bhagavatam Srimad Bhagavatam, a lot is aimed at reminding us of the dangers of remaining entangled in this world. A lot is dedicated to actually cutting that entanglement, but just cutting the entanglement is not the goal of devotional service. The goal is to become attached to the personality of Godhead. This is the secret. Become attached to devotional service given by the pure devotees of the Lord, attached to chanting the holy name, attached to prasadam, that's not such a difficult one, attached to various aspects of devotion, attached to devotees, although it may not be completely pure yet, but that attachment in this way gradually purifies our hearts. And Krishna will remove a cut with a shining lamp of knowledge, that bondage in this material world. And there's another verse, and let's see what the time is. We'll finish on one or two more readings. This is in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It's the last verse of the 4th chapter. I remember when we were on the VIHE, this was like what's the word? I don't know. I never get it. But it was like the theme verse of whatever you call it, of the VIHE. This is the last chapter of the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Tasmad jnana sambhutam vitstam jnana sinatmanaha chidvainam sangshayan yogam atishto tishta bharata. Therefore, Krishna says to Arjuna, he says, therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharat, stand and fight. You can read the purport yourself later on. 42 rather. 442 of the 4th of the Bhagavad Gita. Very significant verse. Doubts. Arjuna had doubt. We all have doubts of various kinds. Doubts are manifest by our looking in other directions for satisfaction or whatever achievements we want. That means we have doubts in the pure, because if we're fully absorbed, fully faithful to Krishna consciousness, we realize there's nothing else required, only that which we have to do in the course of our duty, of course, in this world. But otherwise, we have no other inclination towards other things. Even if it comes in the mind, one has no interest in it. It may come due to our past samskaras and our past attachments and associations in this world, but we have no attraction for it. Or at least we're not going to go there. Ultimately, no attraction. So then when we do, then doubts start coming in when we do go there, or doubts are also a result of our past, you could say. So they're cut, they're cut by the weapon of knowledge, by this regular hearing, Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with devotees, chanting the holy names, etc. By associating with transcendence, or the means to transcendence, and gradually these doubts are slashed, cut. The knot is Ruda Guntas within our Chindanti Kovidas Tasya is cut. Chindanti means to cut. Chindanti Kovidas to cut this knot, this Ruda Gunta in the heart is cut. And that would be, we're so attached, we don't want it cut. We're like a baby in the womb, attached. I mean, maybe not, maybe, but just to give the example. And coming out, the child is not very nice, crying, it's a new atmosphere, yeah. Then they have to cut the umbilical cord. That attachment is still there, has to be cut. So like that, the knot has to be cut. It may not be always so peaceful and pleasing at the first, we're still attached. It has to be done in order for us to actually enter into our real life, Krishna consciousness. The Bhagavatam deals with that also. Not that that's the goal, it's the necessary stage on the path of pure devotional service to become relieved of all these misconceptions, these attachments, even lesser understanding of the absolute truth, etc., etc. Materially motivated religiosity, everything. Why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharma Parityagya Mamikam Sharanam Vricha. Give up all of these other kind of shelters, attachments, desires, etc., and just surrender unto me. And then we'll be completely freed from all sinful reactions, freed of fear, everything, freed of doubt by this surrendering process. So Bhagavatam is the complete, to the furthest extent, the topmost extent, is the path beginning, we could say, surrender, kind of, relatively speaking, not a very pleasant word, but in this sense, that surrender is actually our liberation, our freedom from material bondage. People want liberation, but what type of liberation are they getting? Becoming more bound up, not at all liberated. Women's liberation, gay liberation, this liberation, that liberation. We want their national liberation. But it does nothing except to further entangle us in the causes of our suffering. Absolutely nothing of any value whatsoever. Complete illusion. We're not this body. I mean, that basic understanding is completely devoid in most people's lives. They may think sometimes, but they have no idea, no practice to realize it, no practical application of the principle. It's darkness, gross darkness. And even if they have a concept of that principle, it's usually just to further their materialistic entanglement, so we can enjoy without so much worry or whatever it is. So it's a great task to try to ourselves, of course, sever has a knot severed within our heart by turning to the Lord, following the process of the Lord's devotees and praying for his mercy to release us from this bondage in this world. That's one thing, our own personal purification. We pray to Lord Nrsimhadev, for instance, Om Namo Bhagavate Narsimhaya, Namaste Tejasaya Vira Vibhava Vajranaka Vajradam Karma Shayan Vandaya Tamo Grasa Om Shvaha Abhayam Atmani Bhuyishtong Shvam. May you, Lord, please, we cut this, all these material desires, all this envy, whatever it is in my heart, please, with your nails, rip it out, take it out. We may not like it. Vasikananda Prabhu is facilitating as a dentist. When you go to the dentist, we don't like to have the tooth pulled out, drilled. Don't like it. We may not want that, but that's Lord Nrsimhadev. He's happy to do that. Why? And what's the result when we're purified? The next verse, such justice, do whatever goes on. How the devotee is simply then wants to save everybody else, purify, help others to become purified. When our hearts become purified, then naturally the effect will be more experienced by others also who happen to associate with such a purified devotee. It has an effect. Maybe it's not going to immediately be digested, but it has a tremendous effect on their lives. A moment's association. Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastra Koi. A moment's association with a devotee unknowingly. A moment's association is like, basically speaking, that's the end. It may take some time. That's the beginning, and then there's the beginning of the end. It may take some time, but that's how it works. This is a little radiation. You may get a little tiny atom of radiation, whatever it's called. It's a matter of time before it gradually takes effect. So that little association that a person gets is so fortunate. And that's where we stand. We're so fortunate we've got more than a moment's association. We've got opportunity for constant association with a pure devotee of the Lord. So fortunate. Simply causeless mercy. And this is the mood of the pure devotee. They want to give this to everyone. Some take it, some don't. But it's available to everyone. And the followers, we're just trying to make it more available. And we may not be so pure, but passing on that pure message to others, which will gradually then slowly cut that knot of bondage within this material world, so that others can also become free and realize the goal of life is not material sense gratification. It simply entangles us further and further in the material world. It's the cause of our entanglement. It's false identity, and consequently in trying to satisfy our, illusory desires. So try your best to share Krishna consciousness with others, whatever means you can. Just do Prabhupada's books, prasadam, the holy name, and any other means online, this thing, that thing, to try to remind others of Krishna, step by step by step. It is never lost. Krishna says, Nehapi krimo nashosti patavayana vidite. There's no loss on this path. Even a little bit of advancement can save the living entity from falling into the grossest ignorance. Even a little advancement, little drop. They just touch the book, see the devotee. Just if they see a devotee dressed like a devotee, particularly, they remember something. Who's that guy? Who's those guys over there? What are those women doing over there? Oh, that's those crazy Hare Krishnas. That's maybe the beginning of their spiritual path. They may have some misunderstanding, but it's the beginning. That picture is in their heart. And their path back to God, it has begun just by being reminded. That's why devotees dress sometimes, whenever possible or practical, they dress in dhoti and tilak and so on, because it reminds people of Krishna. That's our only purpose in going out. We have no other business other than that. And to try to remind others of Krishna. We don't need to go out otherwise. So that's just a little thing. There can be many other ways too. That's just a little thing that reminds people of Krishna. And that picture is an eternal benefit for that seer. If you walk down the street, say Oxford Street, maybe 100,000 people would see you. And if you walk down there for a couple of hours, that means 100,000 people have benefited and are on their path back to Godhead. Maybe a little way to go before they make the next step, but they're on the way. Yeah, so this is all grace, mercy of Krishna coming through the pure devotee of the Lord. He's trying everything. We have to just take that up and take that like the torch in the Olympics. You carry the torch and pass it on the back, passing it on. We just carry that lamp and pass it on, that deep jnana deep, pass it on to others. And this way, enlightenment will be there. Real liberation will begin to evolve, and people can become happy. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm going to read one last thing. This is from Srila Prabhupada. I don't know the exact place, but it is from Srila Prabhupada. Everything belongs to Krishna. We also belong to Krishna, for we are his sons. When we come to understand that everything belongs to him, our material attachments gradually slacken. And as we become detached from material life, we proportionally increase our spiritual life and advance in knowledge. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna gives us the example of the banyan tree with its roots upward and its branches down. This tree of material existence must be severed by the weapon of detachment. These knots, which bind us very tightly to the material world, must be cut by someone who is free. Therefore, one who is sufficiently intelligent will associate with saintly persons who are free from the entanglement of material nature and who can sever the knots which bind. There is no benefit in associating with those who are simply engaged in sense gratification. If we want liberation, if we really want to get out of this illusory existence, We must associate with Mahatmas, great souls. All we have to do is simply hear, Shravanam, and by simply hearing from great souls, our knot of nescience will be cut. Just hearing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is the great fortune of associating with sadhu. And Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, one time Prabhupada was giving a lecture. It was somewhere, maybe Gorakhpur, I don't know, somewhere in India, early years. And he was describing how, how this knot has to be severed, has to be cut. And Prabhupada was discussing how most sadhus are not doing that. They're called sadhu, but they're not really, because sadhu means one who, Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, pretty heavy example, but don't take it wrongly. But he says a sadhu is one who, like when the executioner, in some temples and some parts of the world, they execute goats and they do some so-called religious performances. He stands over there with a chopper to chop, to cut the knots. He says a sadhu is one with heavy words, harsh words, cuts the knot of bondage in this material. That is sadhu, not one who pampers to one's material desires, but cuts them out. Not very nice and proud. So one person was a little challenging and very heavy Swamiji. Most Swamijis are very so kind and sweet and nice, but you are speaking very heavily in this way and that. And Prabhupada said, well, your idea of a sadhu is, or as a helping somebody, is when somebody's got a big boil. Your idea is just to puff on the boil. Maybe you release it a little bit from the fever, the pain, whatever. But no, if you really want to help the person, you have to take a knife and slash it out, Prabhupada said. Everyone shoo, very sharp. So, of course, that may not be such an immediate slash, you could say, in the process of devotional service, but that's the principle. The sadhu is one who wants to release it, not just facilitate our bondage, or to, let's say, justify our concepts of life, or how I think it should be, or how it affects me, or how I feel, and all these type of illusory statements, you could say. I mean, they have their part to play in the beginning, but they certainly have to be removed at due course of time. So step by step, the sadhu is trying to, only matters is what does Krishna feel. Everything belongs to him, and everything is only existing for his pleasure, no other reason. So the whole process is to realize that that's the practical knowledge, that everything belongs to Krishna. Everything's meant for his pleasure, including me. Every one of us is living or existing for that ultimate purpose. So sadhu is one who helps us to realize that. And then there will be no inclination, attraction, attachment whatsoever for the causes of suffering in this material world. This is the effect of devotional service under the guidance of the pure devotee of the Lord. So we wish you all the very best in your endeavors to practice Krishna consciousness, take advantage of the association. Try not to obviously do something which is detrimental in the association of devotees. Try to cultivate favorable devotional service in the association of devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. So if anybody has any comments, questions, or whatever, you're welcome to put them on the chat. I think the chat is there. Okay, we've already got 2 comments, or whatever it is, I don't know. How can one recognize a pure devotee of the Lord? Yes, the first one. And then there's another one, which is, there's several questions or comments. Okay, we'll go through them one by one then. How to recognize a pure devotee of the Lord? Well, that's, of course, a very good, very significant comment, because how do we recognize a pure devotee of the Lord? Many people may claim to be a pure devotee of the Lord. How do you recognize? Well, Prabhupada would usually give don't forget here, there's another factor involved in this, and that's called the Lord. And there stays the Lord in the heart, guiding the wanderings of all living entities. It's not by chance that one gets this opportunity either. Although the devotees, you could say, go try to give to everybody, it's not by chance that some pick and some don't. Some take and some don't. The Lord is in their heart. And a certain stage where one not recognized, one will be cheated, you could say. But Krishna can see our actual intent. It's not an external manipulation here or maneuver. It's internal. The Lord can see in our heart that we're ready. We're ready. And he guides one. And to that, he arranges that. That's one thing. We don't forget that. From the external point of view, how can we understand a pure devotee? Well, how do we understand? Probably we'll give an external example. How do you understand who is a doctor? How do you understand what is gold and what's not gold? There has to be some kind of, direction, some kind of, something has to be there to qualify as gold or a qualified doctor. So what you generally look for are the qualifications of the doctor. I mean, is he recognized by the medical board? And if he's not, you start to ask questions. That means, is he in or they are in disciplic succession? Are they properly connected? Because the people in general, it doesn't mean anything. There's no way they can recognize a pure devotee. That's something in their heart. That's the Lord in the heart reveals something. But from an aspiring devotee, we should be a little bit conscious. That's why Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, they're not just Guru. Shastra and Sadhu also equally have to be there. One qualifies it against Shastra and against Sadhu. So you have to see they have to be in disciplic succession. Otherwise, doubts should be there. What is your authority? It's not that anyone can just come up with their speculative perspective and claim to be, authorized, whatever. They have to be in line. This is one thing. They also have to be shown, according to Shastras, practicing what they preach. Not that they say, oh, you should stop eating meat and stop smoking, and they're smoking themselves, or whatever it is. You chant 16 rounds, they don't chant at all. One has to see. At least that can go deeper and deeper, or further and further, we could say, but at least if you can't get past the first stage, you don't really go to the second one. You at least have to be following there, that much. So practicing what they preach. By their example, you have to see. They should also be, you could say, recognized, as Prabhupada. Krishna gives that in the Bhagavad Gita. Talks about how Narada, Sita, however, all great sages recognize, declare that, in this case, Krishna speaking in the third person, you could say, for people in general, but that supreme personality of Godhead. They recognize him. They don't just talk about him. So recognized by other persons who are in disciplic succession, who are practicing what they're preaching, who are, recognized, not by common persons or persons who have an impersonal perspective. There are different, like that, there are different tests according to Shastra that you can give. But ultimately, it's in the heart. Krishna knows. You want to be cheated? Okay, here's a cheater. You're fed up with all that cheating? Okay, now here's your chance. You take or not take, and now it's your choice. And he'll give one an opportunity to associate. And the other effect is, of course, it's like medicine. If you go to a doctor and you see everyone's going to the doctor, dies the day after, or becomes sicker, you'll start to question. I mean, the doctor might have the authority of the government or the medical board, and he might have been practicing for 50 years, but what's going on here? Everyone who goes to this doctor dies the next day. It's not going to make you very confident. So there has to be something has to be seen there. Some change of heart has to be seen also. Otherwise, our faith will not grow. It will be stunted. So different things like that. Of course, ultimately, it's a fact. We are conditioned souls, and that risk of being cheated is there. But Krishna knows that. And if we're sincere, we sincerely want to know the absolute truth, then Krishna will help us. If we still want to be the enjoyer predominantly, and the purpose of pursuing the path is for that reason, then of course we do run the risk that we'll be, carried away by some teacher who tells us, the same thing, and which is usually the case, or religion which is materially motivated, etc. Next one. I think we've gone forward a little too fast there. How do we speak about association with devotees from other faiths, traditions? How should we do this, if at all? Well, obviously, we're going to be working in this world. Sometimes we have a service which involves relating with others from other faiths. We meet on the street every day. Everyone we meet, everyone's got another faith, whether it's religious or not religious. Krishna is giving everyone, according to their desire, a particular faith. Faith and desire go closely together. Krishna gives the faith in what they're endeavoring to do. So how do we associate with them? Well, with respect. Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives other guidelines there. We're not like on the warpath against anyone at all. I mean, it's just the philosophy, and of course, in his case, he would take the philosophy and turn it towards Krishna consciousness. We somehow or another try to follow that example, try to Krishnaize things. Prabhupada, when he was dealing with persons from other denominations, for instance, he wouldn't in any way belittle. I mean, he would sometimes naturally get into not following their own basic teachings. He would make that a point of reference, for sure, of challenge. But in principle, he was not against any of the other teachings, so to speak, at all. But rather, he would encourage people to be sincere in their path. So we generally try to, at least that much, to be a sincere Christian, Muslim, whatever it may be. Be sincere. Don't be a duplicitous hypocrite. Be sincere. And of course, there's sometimes a little bit of a blinker or understanding mentality. Try to broaden it out to the nature. I mean, if a person is genuinely religious, and again, it depends on time and circumstance. You can't obviously speak very much in some circumstances, but find something favorable to help them become a little bit more broad-minded, not so secular or so insular, so fearful, so paranoid. People are so fearful. All these barriers which we draw are simply because of fear or insecurity. So to help people to be a little less fearful, a little bit less insecure, even in their own practices, to be a little bit more open-minded, broad-minded, so to speak. But otherwise, by example, devotee shows by example. I mean, we were on Harinam in Belfast a few months or two ago, and maybe 2 or 3 hour Harinam, I can't remember, but something like that. And there was 1 or 2 persons who were claiming to be Christians, who were trying to drive us away, screaming and shouting the whole way through the kirtan. They didn't move the whole way through. It was amazing. And we were dancing and chanting and smiling and laughing. And people were coming up, taking books, giving donations, wondering what these crazy people are doing on the 5 meters away from us. And they got zero attention except for 1 or 2 similar-minded persons. And some of the public on the street tried to tell them to get out of here. You're just a nuisance. Go away. They were hassling them. They could see that, it was difficult. They had no religious or spiritual realization, but you could see these people look miserable. They're angry. They're annoying. And these people over here are happy, jolly, and bringing a nice sound vibration to the city. And they're, it's just by behavior, by one's own. It's not a philosophical argument going on here. It's by an actual manifestation of the result of being slightly connected properly. You're happy. You're dancing. I mean, people don't generally dance unless they're happy. We could see yesterday in Paris, so many people hundreds of people taking pictures of the girls dancing so blissfully. They're bringing other ladies into the dancing party and so on and so forth. People love it. They like it. They're missing something, and this is what they're missing. They don't know yet exactly, but they feel it on the spot. This is nice. It's amazing. So by behavior, simply by being a Prabhupada said, a Vaishnava, you tell a Vaishnava they're a gentleman. They're well behaved, not become angry because of some point that someone makes or whatever it may be. Prabhupada could do that. We may do that in certain circumstances, but in general, how to help is like children. How to help children to mature, how to help them to grow up. How do you deal with them differently to adults? According to their situation, you deal accordingly. Try to encourage them to mature. Try to encourage them to go forward. Next one, glasses gone. Jai, thank you. Hare Krishna. My best wishes to everyone, your masters with your servants. What would be the best means to define appropriate distance with spiritual master according to one's spiritual level? Not too close and not too far. Well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Oh, that's, for me, I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm not qualified anyway. So you probably don't have any problems there. I'm just acting a part. But in one sense, yes, one has to be very careful that familiarity doesn't come in. When one starts, it's so difficult for me to get into this one in one sense. I'm not a very good example. But if we're starting to get a little familiar, starting to find faults, starting this and that, we have to be very careful. Even if they are there, it's not our business. We have to look for our own faults. We should be looking for our own faults in our spiritual life and not that of others. Maybe we'll talk about more about that one a little later. Another one here. We're always getting guidance and help from senior devotees near and around us. Should we also think of these devotees as good as our guru? Yes, and you can say in one sense, guidance is of various levels. And you may get guidance from others how to eat properly with your fingers when you're taking prasadam, or guidance, how to bow down properly. It's all important. It's very important. It's a form of shiksha. So in the principles, yes, that shiksha and diksha are the same. In practice, we show respect to everyone, and we certainly show respect for those who are helping us on our spiritual path. But you have to also have a little bit of common sense and to respect accordingly. There is, even in the presence of one's own Diksha Guru, if the Diksha Guru is there, you give respect to the Diksha Guru's Diksha Guru is primary. So there are different levels, you could say, of respect there. But respect must always be given. And in a sense, that Diksha is non-different, whether it's coming directly from one Diksha Guru or through another devotee. So we respect the Diksha and the one who's giving the Diksha, which may help us, as we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Kaviraj Goswami is offering his respects to both Diksha and Siksha Gurus and talking about how they're equal. But Siksha is, it's not so simple as it seems in a sense. It's very deep. And when these statements are made, it means that, that personality is really giving you Siksha to go along the path of devotional service to the highest platform in many ways. But even those who are giving on a practical platform, which is teaching us how to wear tilak or do this or that, we have unending, respect, gratitude, and always show that honor to all devotees, not just those who do that. We honor all devotees. You have to use a little common sense there. Sometimes if family of devotees say too much Krishna consciousness is not good and needs some recreation, what should be that recreation like if I don't like watching TV dramas? You don't like watching TV dramas? What's wrong with you? It's absolute necessity if you want to stay in Maya. If you want to stay in Maya. What recreation? What Prabhupada said for a devotee. What recreation? Of course, you may have a family. You may have social commitments. So there's a certain area there which, that will be an individual thing. But in principle, our recreation is dancing and chanting, feasting and festivals. And Prabhupada said for devotee recreation, at least for the men, I suppose for the ladies it can be the same, I don't know. But at least swimming, Prabhupada said, is Vaishnava recreation. And you see, this is a time and circumstance situation too. You also said wrestling sometimes, but that depends on your nature. Everything depends on your situation and your nature. Sometimes Prabhupada also authorized for children, for instance, they were played sometimes games like football. and things like that. But it's not that we make that our goal of life and we don't carry it through to the, there's increasing attachments and different. We see all sorts of different situations. So it depends what level we're on. You take local advice on that one. You can't give a black and white answer to everyone. Some people are, at different levels and different situations. You've got children. You've got to interact with your children. The father has to do things with his kids, take them out and this and that. Obviously, it's different. Watching movies, there's not really any benefit from that. If you want to watch movies, watch Krishna conscious ones. And that's good. We try to transform them into spiritual Krishna conscious events rather than just mundane, just for the sake of taking a break, as you say, too much Krishna consciousness. There's no such thing as too much Krishna consciousness. However, there is a stage where you're trying to imitate. So one has to know at different stages of our life. We may not know and we may make mistakes, but the principle is we should know at different stages what is the balance, what is appropriate, what's not. And at different stages, different degrees will be there naturally. For one who's renounced from this world, then it would be expected that they're not really doing any of these things. They don't need it. They're already been there, done it, and moved on. But when you're young, when you're grihasta, then sometimes it's required in order to let out that passion, or just develop team spirit, or look after encourage the kids, or whatever it may be. Just got to let your passion off, to let your health, whatever. Different reasons may be involved. But we should try to make them as Krishna conscious as possible, not unnecessary, not more than required. The balance should be there when it's moderate, regulated in their behavior, not one who does nothing or does it all, but some regulation there, moderation, and that which is favorable for our health and our growth in spiritual life. Sometimes little yoga, different things devotees may do to keep health. It's not necessary, but it may be necessary at that stage in order to keep our mind a little bit peaceful, or our body a little healthy, or to attract others to Krishna consciousness sometimes, to encourage our families and so on and so forth. Okay. One more. Is it appropriate for devotees to go to the gym lifting weights, or is it considered part of wrestling sport? Oh my goodness, I don't know. Wrestling, I don't know. I'm not a wrestler. I'm never a weightlifter, as you can probably guess. Some devotees have that as their profession, by the way. I know one devotee in Bombay, that's his profession. Sparring, I think. He's professional. He runs a gym. He's a professional weightlifter. So sometimes it's one's profession. It's something which at some point of time we have to let go of. We have to let go of those weights, unless they're required in your devotion. A devotee accepts that which is required. Bandha Krishna Sambhane Yukta Vairagam Uchate. Doesn't take that which is not of value. Now, if you can use it. I'll give an example. One time Srila Prabhupada was in Canada, and he was talking to a devotee named Peter Burwash. He wasn't, at that time, he was a friend. Peter Burwash, his name was. He was a professional tennis player. He played for Canada at tennis. He later on became the coach of the Canadian tennis team. And he had his own schools of tennis coaching. He had schools for other things too. He was also this new age, modern, what do you call it, motivator. He passed away a few months ago, actually. So he was very much involved in these things. And Prabhupada spent hours talking to him about how to do this in Krishna consciousness. He never at one time said, don't do it. He said, but you have to do it in Krishna consciousness. So if that's your profession, that's something else. He said that many occasions to different devotees in different situations. And sometimes he said no. But in many occasions, he said, you do that, but you do it in Krishna consciousness. And that's what Peter did throughout his whole life. He began chanting 16 rounds. He brought hundreds of thousands of people to vegetarianism and Krishna consciousness to some degree through his profession. So if it helps you to bring others to Krishna consciousness and helps you to become Krishna conscious, then, of course, that's a subject which may be justifiable. If it doesn't, if it's just, let's say, another direction which we're going, and then definitely you have to question, what am I going to do about this? Is it just because I like to be, seen as a strong person? If you need that strength in your service, that's something else. There are other ways, by the way, of becoming strong besides weightlifting. But whatever it is, one has to see by the results also. What is it? Is it helping me to become Krishna conscious? You have to see. Or is it just a temporary thing, which, maybe it is? Or is it something which I can really use in Krishna's service and bona fide? And if you have a doubt about that, you can ask further on the detail. You can't give a blanket answer on the open forum. It's a personal thing which depends on the situation and the results of the circumstances. So it's not a yay or a nay, but in terms of absoluteness, it's a nay. In terms of relativity or a relative situation, it depends. And it's not something we have to carry through our whole lives, by the way. Once one comes to a certain stage, then even materially you have to drop it, what to speak of spiritually. We let go. Because we have a higher taste, and we realize it's not really serving our ultimate goal. Okay, well, I think we have to finish there. Jim, if you do a lot of dancing and jumping going on Sankirtan, you'll also be very healthy and fit, by the way. But sometimes we spend money on all these other things and miss out on the essential purpose or the essential practice of Sankirtan, which costs nothing and purifies one's heart and keeps you fit. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everybody. As far as I'm sorry, Viparangas, it's a tough one, that, because everyone's of a different nature, and I'm of a different nature. Some devotees, they keep well different. With Prabhupada, we used to keep, I did. Some devotees you see were very close, and they could take the chastisement. They were willing for it. They were able for it. As soon as there was too much familiarity, they either went away or Prabhupada sent them away. But most of us just followed the instruction of the spiritual master from whatever distance it is, sitting there in class or just seeing Prabhupada, but not making out that, Prabhupada's idea, not understanding Prabhupada's instruction on this was service. We do service. We associate with the spiritual master through service, not just being around, talking about essaying and this and that. That may be there occasionally with in certain situations, but generally not. It was focused on service. Understanding the desire of the spiritual master, we associate by understanding their desire. We associate by hearing from them. But that doesn't require to be, overly close. It can be any distance. We hear Prabhupada's books all over the world. We listen to his lectures, we associate like that. And with those who had association with Prabhupada, and we get the realization by putting it into practice. That doesn't require intimate contact everywhere, wherever we are. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Harinama Sankirtana ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Go Premanandi, all glorious to all the assembled devotees, all glorious to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Jai Hari Bo.
Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
We have now booked our tickets from Australia and New Zealand, some of them, and
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Malaysia. We're booking more tickets. So many of you are from Australia and New Zealand. So we hope Krishna wills. We hope to see you next year in the beginning of next year in Malaysia. We hope to go to Philippines also. We're working on that one too. And India. We've already booked our tickets to Malaysia, that's for sure, and to Australia. So we hope that others will be booked soon. And we hope that we get the chance to see you all again a little closer soon. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
And Australia, Malaysia, Philippines, India, Ireland, Germany, France, England. I mean, no, America's middle of the night. Hare Krishna, everybody. All
Hare
glories to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare.
Haribo, Haribo.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.